Hi, my name is Stephanie, and welcome to the first Bridger podcast episode. Today, we will cover the difference between copyright and master rights. Yeah, that's right, because even though this topic might sound complicated or it might not be one of your priorities, but it's really crucial to understand this difference because behind these terms, there are your revenues as a music composer and as an artist. So to begin, let me explain which types of rights are linked to a song. There are two types of rights attached to a track: the copyright, also sometimes called author rights or publishing rights, and the master rights. So the first question is, what is copyright? Okay, before we get to that point, you need to remember that different stakeholders are part of the song creation process. This means it can be the people in charge of writing the music, such as authors, composers, and songwriters, but it can also be the publisher, the producer, various performers, and even the music label. So copyright are the rights of authors, composers, and songwriters. And copyright also concerns publishers, too. I know it might sound like all of these terms have the same definition, but they all have a specific meaning. They are all linked to the art of writing a song. Within copyright, there is a difference between two types of royalties: performance royalties and mechanical royalties. We pay performance royalties to play a composition in public. So a restaurant that plays background music to create a cozy atmosphere, that's a good example. As restaurants are considered public places, the owners must pay for a license to be allowed to play music. This brings us to mechanical royalties. So these are paid to reproduce a composition on physical supports. A label would typically need to pay these to produce CDs, meaning that they would have to pay mechanical royalties for each CD they manufacture. But wait, don't we mostly listen to music on streaming platforms today? I mean, I know I do, right? So what about streaming services? Well, mechanical royalties are paid when a user chooses to play a specific song. Performance royalties are also generated each time a track is being played. So, when you decide to play a track, your stream will generate both performance and mechanical royalties. Oh, wait a second. There is just one thing. In the case you're using a non-interactive music streaming service such as Pandora, or maybe listening to a radio on Spotify, for example, your stream will only generate performance royalties in that case. So the next important question is, who collects your copyright? Well, the system is pretty simple in Europe. Independent management entities, also called IMEs, such as Bridger or traditional collective management organizations, also called CMOs, like SACEM in France or SABEM in Belgium, collect and pay the copyright royalties of their members. And you might be wondering, how does that work? Well, you register with one of them, which will then be in charge of collecting your copyright royalties from many different channels, such as TV, radio, live concerts, and online streaming services, of course, as well as restaurants and other public places. And of course, the system is slightly different in the United States, or it wouldn't be funny, would it? So, performance rights organizations, also named PROs, such as BMI or ASCAP, are in charge of collecting and paying you the public performance rights. For mechanical reproduction rights, you must go through rights administration entities, also named RAEs, such as the Harry Fox Agency or Music Reports. It means that if you're in the United States and want to get the full spectrum of your copyright, you need to combine a PRO and an RAE. So in this case, it is simpler for Europeans who only need to collaborate with one single organization. So let's move on to the next question. Where do copyright revenues come from? Okay, so the independent management entities, collective management organizations, and performance rights organizations, they all collect your rights from where your musical works are played. So historically speaking, we're talking about TV and radio. Concert venues are also in this mix, and commercial establishments. But the democratization of the internet and the advent of legal streaming have deeply changed consumer habits. So this is creating many challenges and even opportunities for broadcasters and listeners. Your Copyright Management Society also collects your rights on streaming platforms such as Spotify, Deezer, or Apple Music, as well as on large series of emerging platforms and networks. These new emerging services are often your primary source of revenue in this new digital ecosystem. If your music is available on streaming services through a digital distributor such as DistroKid and TuneCore, you need to understand that this distributor only pays out royalties on the master side. So in concrete terms, what does this mean? Well, it's really important to understand because if you are not a member of a society authorized to collect your copyright royalties, it means that you are missing out on a part of your income. So, let's move on to master rights. What are they? Well, two actors are usually associated with master rights: the performers, singer, guitarist, bass player, etc., and the producers. Master rights are linked to the recording of a musical work. That's why they include both performers and producers. Who collects your master rights? Well, as I mentioned for copyright, master rights can be collected on two main kinds of channels: historical channels such as TV, radio, and public places, and streaming platforms such as Spotify, Deezer, or Apple Music. How does master rights collection work on historical channels? Well, again, by historical channels, we are referring to music being played on television, on the radio, in clubs, and in any public place such as a restaurant or a bar. Each country has its own collective management organizations. They are in charge of collecting and redistributing the master rights to performers and producers. And again, we need to talk about the streaming platforms. So, how does the collection of master rights on music streaming platforms work? Well, music streaming platforms, or DSPs, meaning digital service providers, such as Spotify, Amazon Music, or Tidal, have become the primary way musicians reach their audience. To be available on the streaming services, you must either register with a digital distributor, such as DistroKid or TuneCore, or if you're signed on a label, they will take care of handling the distribution for you. These industry players manage the performers' and producers' share. It's important to note that these companies have their own specific business model when it comes to digital distribution. What does that mean? Well, sometimes you'll have to pay a yearly subscription, as with DistroKid. With others, you will need to pay for each recording. This is the case with TuneCore, for example. And sometimes the service is free, with the distributor simply taking a cut of your earnings. So now you know the difference between copyright and master rights. Before we end this episode, here is a quick recap of what you need to remember. Two types of rights are linked to a track: copyright and master rights. Copyright covers the remuneration of songwriters and publishers. IMEs or CMOs collect them in Europe, while PRO and RAEs take care of the collection in the US. And master rights remunerate the performers and producers. They are typically paid out to artists by their digital distributors, if they work independently, or by labels. Well, I hope this episode was really interesting for you. Thanks so much for listening and making it to the end. And in order to stay up to date with our latest news and receive a notification every time a new podcast episode is available, well, all you have to do is follow us on your favorite podcast player and on social media. So thanks for listening again, and bye for now.